Kiss my aesthetics, branding, marketing, entrepreneurship.
Greetings and welcome back to the Kiss My Aesthetic podcast. I really think that we as marketers need to start to think beyond social, which is very scary to say. I've built my business in the last 11 years through referral, through Instagram, and through TikTok. Also the Facebook group, obviously, also the podcast, but it's been such a heavy reliance on digital that to start to think of how the brand grows or evolves beyond being online is, again, a bit of a think piece. I'm really excited for this episode also because I hope it inspires you to get your gears turning on different ways to expand your brand and how much all branding efforts work as cogs in the same machine, right? So branding and marketing often get overshadowed for being a sales department when really marketing and sales are so separate from each other, related, but separate. And that marketing is even divvied out into more categories, right? I think most recently we've really kind of shelled out that marketing is just social media marketing or digital marketing. But what I think we're missing here is this connection to all the people that are starting to create more boundaries with their screen time and with their online activity. The biggest mistake that we see happen when it comes to branding, and this should come as a shock to absolutely no one, is a lack of a clear brand identity. Having a strong brand identity, this is, you guys know, this is my soapbox that I will stand on for forever. And it's so much more than just a logo. So even this week, we had someone come in for a discovery call that had branding, that got the colors, the fonts, the logos, and then they kind of got stuck and were like, now what? Right? So a brand identity is way, 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 way more than just putting your logo on top of everything. The things you want to consider in brand identity, of course, are your colors, your fonts, icons, patterns, illustrations, supporting assets, everything from photography, videography style. Now, as part of our brand guidelines, we're including like sound effects or playlists that help to communicate the brand look and feel. And then we also are giving them notes on voice and tone. Obviously, if you've listened to this podcast before, you know I'm a big ChatGPT girly. You want to make sure that you have those voice and tone guidelines that anyone can access that tells anyone who's creating collateral on behalf of your brand how to communicate the brand identity consistently and clearly. So revisit your brand identity. This is something to think about maybe yearly. You can have an audit of your brand and figure out like, what are we missing? What lacks? What needs to be adjusted? But working with a designer, a creative director, or a brand strategist is going to be really important here to make sure that you have those clear brand identity guidelines decided on. That's a really, really common mistake. And I think it's a really common trap to fall into, right? Because if you're starting as a small business and you're starting out with a designer who's not as experienced or doesn't consider omni-channel marketing, meaning being present everywhere from print to digital to social to web to email, etc., then you're not always considering all those different touch points, right? So that's where it's really important to have clear brand identity because it allows you to come back to reference that so that everything that you make is consistent. That's what we're looking for. Everyone is not your ideal client. Not even women 30 to 55 is not an ideal client. There are way too many people that fit the demographic. You are going to have so much more success by doing a deep dive on an ideal client avatar than you will like just naming out demographic information, especially as your brands grow and evolve and as branding grows and evolve. Even if you have a product or you have a service, you probably also have sub audiences. So like, let's take my business, for example, right? Like we do branding, social media marketing, creative direction, print design, packaging design, the whole thing. Our ideal client is the client that's going to buy those services, but it's also everyone that follows me on social media, everyone that listens to the podcast, everyone that's interacting in the Facebook group. So the ecosystem that is MKW Creative Co. is actually much larger than just the people that are paying for our services. So understanding who you're targeting and where is going to better inform how your brand shows up in those places. So our website needs to be very client forward. That's the main driver. That's going to be the legitimacy builder, right? Whereas something like Instagram or the Facebook group or TikTok is way more off the cuff, way more casual, way less measured than what we put in through the website. Same thing with this podcast. The person listening to this podcast, you're probably also a creative. You're probably also a designer, or you're a small business owner that's in that phase where you're DIYing a lot of this stuff and you don't really know how to get to that next level. And so you're coming to this podcast to learn those things and not necessarily to like have it done for you because you're not in that phase of business yet. So for me, it's really important that I understand my ideal audience and understand the consumer of not only my services or my product offerings, but who's the consumer of your content. Another example here would be like my sister, for example. She runs a wedding planning business. She gets followers of people that are engaged. So they just got engaged and then they're following her because she's a wedding planner. So she needs to make the content for the person that just got engaged. That being said, she has kind of like a natural attrition after that person gets married. So how do you keep an audience and what's the purpose of keeping an audience once they've gone through your service, right? The idea is they're only getting married once. So how can she continue to create content so that that person that she worked with 3 years ago is still interested in what she has to say and interested in what she has to share so that she still becomes a referral source? So understanding your target audience, really, really important in branding and marketing to make sure that you're getting hyper-focused in your messaging. And once you understand your target audience, you can use that information to inform the brand identity. You're not repeating yourself enough. Having a marketing message and making one post about it is not enough. You've got to find ways to say the same thing, first of all, multiple times. And second of all, say it in different ways, right? So people learn differently, people absorb differently, but also we're completely inundated with crap all day long. So if you want to cut through the noise and you want your ideal client to see your stuff, you want people to listen, you want people to converse with your brand and have a culture around your brand as part of the community, you have to say the same things over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. That's just the reality. That's also marketing, right? So you may have a touch point on social, you may have a touch point on print, you might say the same message on your website, you might say the same message on your YouTube channel. That's the other one that we're doing is YouTube. Repeating yourself and not being hard on yourself for saying the same message over and over again. So perfect example of this. I have wanted to try Athletic Greens for forever. I have probably opened their website 18 different times. Every podcast I listen to seems to be sponsored by Athletic Greens. And now, literally probably on my 1000th exposure to this brand, I finally added it to my cart. And I haven't even checked out of the cart yet. I have not even checked out on the cart, but I'm going traveling. I'm like, you know what? I really do want to try Athletic Greens and see if I feel any differently. But the name Athletic Greens, like I've literally been in the orbit of that brand for years, literal years. Like I saw a girl drinking Athletic Greens on a bachelorette party like 2 years ago, and I never like did it for myself. So again, like the presence and the consistency of being present in the places where I am is working in their favor. So I follow them on Instagram. I follow them on social media. They sponsor all the podcasts that I listen to. And now that I finally have a need, I'm like, okay, let's see how much this costs. Let's go over to this website. So consistency, visibility, and repeating yourself in a way that connects to that person. And honestly, what seals the deal is that the podcast that I listen to, they talk about taking Athletic Greens when they travel and about how it makes them feel better. It starts their day off on the right foot. They're getting all the vitamins and nutrients that they need in a day that feels unpredictable. You're not at home. You're not cooking for yourself. You're eating at restaurants. So like that storytelling and that messaging is probably had to hit my ears 400 times before I even considered buying. So repeat yourself, repeat yourself, repeat yourself. Really important thing to do with your marketing. And just because you posted it and you know you posted a message about a program, about a service, about a product, like your audience, it's not going to sink in for them on one post. Regardless of the visibility, it's not going to sink in for them. Even if they have the luxury of seeing your post, you broke through the algorithm. Like, even if that's the case, the probability of that message actually sinking in is very, very low. So what we do when it comes time to actually release and post all of these things is come up with a posting schedule where we create what's kind of called like a content flood. And the idea with that is to go hard, ride really hard for anywhere from 7 to 14 days on that specific initiative. So there's some tips and tricks I've picked up from along my time of working with Dental Hygiene Nation, with Hotel Lobby Candle, with some of our other brands, and even now on our own socials that I think will be helpful to you as marketers and also small business owners to really stretch out that moment to get the most impact. As we know with social media, it's not about posting once and hoping that your audience takes action, but your audience needs at least 17 different exposures to a message to actually do something about it, right? And this is all organic content, by the way. We're not talking paid, we're not getting into ads, but purely organic social media content that fits to a theme, a vision, a directive. Branding and marketing often get overshadowed for being a sales department when really marketing and sales are so separate from each other, related, but separate. And that marketing is even divvied out into more categories, right? I think most recently we've really kind of shelled out that marketing is just social media marketing or digital marketing. But what I think we're missing here is this connection to all the people that are starting to create more boundaries with their screen time and with their online activity. So I have a few different pointers for how we might start to think of expanding beyond social media to continue to grow our brands. And the first one is kind of the most obvious, which is print design. So I think we've lost a lot of our great print design, and I'm not surprised to see it start to make a comeback, which is thinking about how your brand lives in a 2D print capacity. So I love when brands do really intentional things with print. There's nothing that bothers me more than opening the mailbox and getting a bunch of junk that I didn't ask for and I didn't want. So I think to create good print design is to think about things that have multifunctionality to them. For example, could you design a postcard where the front of the postcard feels more like a piece of art that you'd want to have on your pin board or your refrigerator or even frame and keep around instead of go immediately into the recycle bin? Could you send print things that had some kind of functionality like an iron-on patch or stickers or printed on seeded paper that you could plant and reuse? I think there's a lot of capacity within print to push the envelope. And I think there's going to be a lot of nostalgia for print and ways to create print design that feels like it was pre-internet. So I think more brands will start to do newspapers. More brands will start to do brand specific magazines. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a resurgence in actual printed editorial. We're missing this. I really think as a culture, we're missing that tactile, I'm going to pick something up and actually read it or look at it or flip through it. A lookbook, for example, a beautiful coffee table book. I really think that there are opportunities to do this artfully. And a lot of the print design needs that handwritten or hand selected touch, right? These will be obviously more expensive to produce than putting out 200 social media posts. But I think if you can put print design at the top of your editorial brand food chain, that all of your content downstream will get better. So print materials would definitely be the most obvious way to kind of expand beyond social media as your only avenue of marketing. The next one that I want you to think about is really community engagement. Community events, workshops, classes, things that get people out of their homes and into your brand universe. That could look like a lot of different things. If you're an educator, obviously, it makes sense to do a workshop. If you are an interior designer, it makes sense to host an event, a showroom kind of event, a tour of a slab yard, something that really gets people who are interested in what you have going on to interact with your brand in more long form. So I think it's also really interesting as event planners evolve and we evolve kind of like to this, where is the blend between online life and offline life, is can you host events where the photography and videography is taken care of by a professional and that you don't need to have anyone have their phones out? Because I think inspiring genuine connection as a brand is going to be something that more people flock to, and actually encouraging them to not post or not video, but instead capture that from your brand lens and not worry so much about everyone having their phone out. So thinking about hosting in-person events or partnering with local businesses in your area for cross promotion makes the most sense. So an example of this, we might pitch So Diego Tours to do an in-person event with Lily Parr, the golf, tennis, pickleball apparel company, on a like women's pickleball bar crawl outing. That would be a great crossover. It's both businesses, it's cross-promotional, it's the same audience, and it could be in the same area. And what you're doing when you're hosting events as a brand is you're finding ways to give people a feeling and then associate it with your product or service. So giving them a taste, giving them just a little hint of what you've got going on. Again, if you can become a reputable brand by hosting great events consistently, it's another great way to kind of expand beyond an online presence into a real world capacity. I'd want you to think really carefully about what that community engagement looks like as well. Maybe you're not hosting, but instead you sponsor something or you become a fixture at a community fair or a farmer's market. How does the experience of your brand, what are the adjectives or the brand values that you could bring to the table in an in-person capacity that could, again, pull you off screen and create those one-to-one connections? And what I noticed with clients up until now is that we spend all this time and effort and energy on the rebranding, and then we hand everything over. And what happens is they're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. Like, how the heck am I supposed to let people know all of this information and really kind of bring this brand into the world? So what we're going to do in this episode is get into that. Right? We're going to give you a framework and also checklist, hopefully a brainstorm about how you can really make a moment out of this milestone and not just throw up an Instagram post and switch over the colors on your website and call it a day. The reason this matters so much is that a rebrand is really an emotional and visual reset for your audience. A rebrand gives you the opportunity to really say like, hey, we took inventory of everything that's going well, and now we finally have a look to match. A lot of what we do when our team is approaching a rebrand process is really dig in to make sure that that mission and vision is coming to the forefront. And I actually had a discovery call earlier today with another company in the same industry, and they asked the question like, well, how do we make sure that you're not doing the same thing for everyone? Which is a totally valid question, right? And where our good branding comes into play is that we're doing all of that research, deep research into your brand, deep research into what you do well, deep research into your reviews, your testimonials, your services, and trying to figure out with all the competitors that exist out there, what's the thing that makes you special and what's the thing that creates those lasting memory anchors for someone who is not only a client, but a repeat client. Additionally, a rebrand is a time for fresh energy. People want to be a part of something more now than ever. And I think with how much AI is impeding our ability to discern real from fake, I think that an in-person event and a celebration of your top customers and your top contributors to your business, be that your team members, your agents, etc., having that as a hallmark moment makes so much sense. I wanted to pull some statistics for you from my research as well about this emotional connection point, because this is really the foundation that we're going to build this brand reveal, brand party out of. So 76% of consumers are more likely to buy from brands that they feel emotionally connected to. That's the first one right off the top. Another statistic to consider here is that emotional brand storytelling can deliver a 96% increase in your conversion rate, while customers with emotional ties have a 3 times higher lifetime value. This is not surprising, right? If you think about the brands that really, truly impact you and that you remember more than anything, there is that kind of magnetism to wanting to tell people about it. This is our brag-worthy experience, right? So this is what our team is always striving for, is how do you create something that people will talk about regardless of what room that they are in, because they had such a good experience or they had such a good outcome from your product or service. When we bring that into real life, 85% of consumers are more likely to buy after participating in events or branded experiences. This is huge. 70% of event attendees also become repeat customers. So for how much all of our businesses rely on the virtual, on the online, on the social media to start to bring that experience to the physical, does lead to more conversions. So again, that's 85% of consumers more likely to buy after participating in an event, and 70% of event attendees becoming repeat customers. So in the instance of Gallivant Society, obviously, this is a celebration of their travel program and also a branch into their private travel services. So having this event to really let people in on that and connect people who'd been on past trips with people from other past trips. Again, you're creating that emotional connection. You're pulling people together. You're having them share their experiences in real time. This is huge. Lastly, brand trust and recognition. 81% of consumers need to trust a brand before they buy from it. And 50% of those consumers are more likely to purchase from brands that they recognize. Remember, I say this all the time on the podcast. People have to be exposed to the same marketing message a minimum of 17 different times. And that's not just 17 Instagram posts. That's 17 different touch points. It might be your website. It might be word of mouth. It might be print. It might be merch. It might be something else. But that combination of 17 different touch points is what's actually going to drive someone to take action on your marketing message. Additionally, brand consistency across your visuals and messaging overall can help boost your revenue by up to 33%. The third big lesson, which is something that's come, I think, a little more naturally to me than most, which is nice, is that community is everything, and building your own corner of the world to connect is always, 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 always going to be worth it. Working for yourself can be very isolating, very isolating. It can be really lonely, but the way to combat that is really build community. I feel so lucky to have grown up in the era of social media because I've got to talk to, interview, work with people that are really incredible from all different walks of life. And being able to do that with community has been really helpful. Just to even ask the kinds of questions or learn from each other socially. The greatest testament of that for us has definitely been the Facebook group. So the Facebook group, Kiss My Aesthetics, same name as the podcast, is such a fun slice corner of the internet for people to get feedback from each other, to learn, to grow, to build, connect with each other. But don't overlook your local communities as well. Community can be, people that are actually in your vicinity and also beyond. I spent a lot of time digital nomad traveling, grew a huge community there of entrepreneurs and like-minded folks. But the community that I've built here locally in San Diego also helps to support the business on an ongoing basis, right? So the more people that know of you and know what you do and know what you can do to help them, then the better your business is going to be for it. Also, you create a space for people who align with your values, which we'll talk about again, to shine. That's going to be the spot where you're going to find that you do the best work, right? It's much easier to work with people that you align with than people that you don't. So building community is definitely going to always be a recommendation for anyone starting a business, regardless of how far you are in that journey. The old adage of build it and they will come, that's kind of what we're going for. So that's the third one. Fourth, hire people that help you with the things that you hate so you can stay in your zone of genius. This was something that terrified me. And if you'd asked me 10 years ago if I was going to run a team, I would have said, hell no. Because I think it was I think in the earlier years of my business, I was really proud to be a one-woman show. I was really excited and had a lot of value tied up in being the person that could do all the things. And I realized that when it was just me running everything, I wasn't serving my clients very well because I have a skill set that's very good at some things and very bad at other things. And it wasn't until I realized oh, wait a second, you're telling me somebody loves sending proposals and following up clients on invoices? You mean there's someone that loves to organize project folders? You mean there's someone who loves to just not talk to the client at all and get their design work done all day? It kind of opened my eyes to the idea of how cool it would be to get help. Not saying that I couldn't do those things, but to also hire people that do the things that I hated doing. And that was so helpful to me in a way of being able to expand my own time and creativity and energy and resources into the things that I was actually good at. Because who doesn't want to do more of the things that they're good at and less of the things that they hate doing? So hiring people that can help you with the things that you hate doing, and there will always be things that you hate doing because that's just reality, helps. hugely. So we're at a really good spot now, year 10, where I feel that there are some very core members of my team that are very good at doing the things that I'm not good at. I hate a spreadsheet. I hate budgeting. I hate running payroll. I hate figuring out when a client is available across 6 different time zones. And what I did was hire people who have that skill set and allowed me to then not have to do those things, which is really helpful. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please don't forget to send it to a friend, save it, share it, post it. We would appreciate all of that. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube because we're on YouTube as well. And we'll catch you next time. Bye.